life and kind of darkness. It's kind of like in our world we see, like, you know, there's that moment where you face the fact that your parents are actually people, but they had lives and they were kids, and that's kind of, whoa, mind-blowing to some people. So because you always put them up on such a pedestal, and so as we're seeing now that he has to take his own agency and decide how he's going to confront the enemy in his own right, and at the same time we brought in another great new character, Bendu, played by Tom Baker, the Doctor to many of us in the States, and he's just fantastic in that role, and he's going to give us another point of view on the Force that we haven't really seen before, that's been touched upon in series like Clone Wars.
Were you in the recording booth when Tom Baker did his lines?
I have been, yeah. I've been out here in London and recorded him, and I've actually been back home at Skywalker Sound and done a patch-in and recorded, but he's just fantastic. I mean, in the States, the Fourth Doctor is really the one that we have the most, the scarf, the long scarf, so that's like the icon for all of us, and now kind of David Tennant, Matt Smith's son, have taken over, and that's with the young crowd, but to the older people, you know, he is the Doctor, and I was charmed because I found very little separation between Tom and the Doctor. He pretty much is that charismatic, fun, robust guy that you want to be. When I patch into him from California and say, Tom, how are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just radiant, David, radiant. And no one has ever told me they're radiant before. And I don't want anybody else to now either. That should just be Tom. He's the only one that can be radiant.
And he uses your full name as well, which is only polite, of course.
He does, yeah. Well, it's the Doctor. What are you gonna do?
I'm not sure he's a medical doctor though, but
doesn't matter. He's better, man.
What about that voice though? He has that incredible deep boom.
Yeah,
voice.
I was set when I came up with the character of Bendu and the weirdness that I wanted him to have, this kind of otherworldly nature. I was like, this is where Tom Baker is. I need to have him in this character. And some people didn't quite understand why that I was so set on that. I'm like, it's almost not worth doing if we don't have him.
Yeah.
Because he not only has a great voice and you know, timbre for that character, he understands this type of mythology. He understands the way these stories connect from young to old, and he does stuff with his performance that I think heighten the bizarre quality. Sometimes it's a bit threatening, but sometimes it's incredibly joyful, and it's very like I just can't describe. It's like out of a fable, and he understands that in a way that some ways is a little bit lost these days, I think.
So season 3, there's a little bit of a time jump. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we never really deal with absolutes. That's kind of a more Sith thing. So I look at it as it's several months, possibly as long as a year.
Yeah.
But you see, a year feels like it's probably too long, and a calendar year in the Star Wars universe, I'd have to ask Pablo and Leland how long that is. But ultimately, I feel like what you're dealing with is a period of mourning for this family that has gone through a big tragedy. You know, they seem to have lost Ahsoka Tano. They seem to, Kanan has been injured. Ezra is a bit more extreme. Ezra feels responsible because he kind of led them down this path where so many things went wrong, even though they took out a couple Inquisitors. So it's a challenging time for the group, and Hera's trying to keep it together because the Empire is not going to stop and say, okay, recover your feelings. You know, they're going to keep marching on and oppressing. So we're going to pick them up at a state where really you find Ezra has taken the lead as far as what Kanan used to, and Kanan has pretty much removed himself from the rebels altogether because he doesn't know what value he has.
So how far in advance do you have planned, and how far in advance did you have planned from season 1?
Well, Simon Kinberg and I have always thought in terms of what's the point, what's the overall arc of the story of this family. So we discuss it from time to time. We're always hitting it, and it evolves as each season evolves. Right now, pretty much, you know, the most of season 3 has been put into production. I have episodes that are obviously animated and in final post, all the way through still being in animation and a little bit in story. So, you know, right now we are laying the groundwork as we're doing that work for a potential 4th season, which hopefully we'll get, and how we would continue this story from that point. So I've said before, we're really way far out ahead of everybody in reaction, which is kind of scary because I have to come here to remember that they haven't seen anything from season 3 yet. And I'm like, season 3, all right, oh my gosh, that's so long ago. There's all this crazy stuff that has happened now. If you see what Sabine's doing, and let alone what Hera's doing, the only thing you can rest on is Chopper's pretty much the same.
Okay, yeah.
He's still a jerk, but I love him for it because I love my cat, and she's that way. But at the end of the day, maybe this is a spoiler, but kind of a fun one. Chopper can reveal at times to have a very soft side. He reveals at times that he actually cares about the crew.
Okay, yeah.
Mainly Hera. But at the same time, the reason why he doesn't act that way, it's like when your friend is nice to you, but they're kind of not nice normally. They get uncomfortable, so then they're more of a jerk.
Yeah.
That's Chopper. He's just like, I'm going to be nice to you, but gosh, I'm going to have to mess with you later in the worst way possible. So people either like Chopper or hate him because of that, and I like both of those outcomes, If you're against him, he must frustrate you, and if you're for him, you cheer when he knocks an astromech out of a hangar. Most of Chopper's meanest moments come out of opportunity. The little droid in season 1 that helped them out, that they got from the Empire, that you look like, oh my gosh, we're going to get a second droid on the crew. That's so great. And it was originally written that way, and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And everyone was like, what? I'm like, well, I know my cat. Have you ever tried to introduce a second cat to a cat?
It's bedlam.
That doesn't go over well. And so I said, Chopper, just have him knock him out the door, and the crew is like, what happens to that droid? I'm like, that's not our problem. It lives with the loft cat. So on the crew, we have this whole kind of imagination that droid is now the king of the loaf cats, and they're sitting there running low on battery power, and now it's just a statue. And